Italian Football Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Questions from the Italian Football Podcast Patrons, where you, our patrons, decide what the show is about by simply sending in your questions via email, DM on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, but preferably via DM on Patreon. I'm joined as always by Carlo Garganese, and I think we've got a record-breaking number of questions. So let's start with the first question, which has been sent in from Michael Ferrigno, who says, during Inter's dramatic win over Barcelona in the Champions League semi-final, I was joking with an Inter fan as Davide Fratesi came on. I said it would go one of two ways. Either Inter would concede twice because of him, or he'd score and celebrate so wildly he'd give himself a heart attack. Well, it wasn't quite a 50-minute celebration, and thankfully no heart attack occurred. Fratesi did end up needing medical attention after his goal celebration, so I wasn't that far off. It got me thinking, what players from the past went nuts celebrating on the pitch to the point that fans will remember not only the goal, but the aftermath? Or favorite, unforgettable goal celebrations that every Calcio fan should have etched in memory? As always, I appreciate your insights. For me, I always remember like Tardelli. Like for me, that is Schilacci, Tardelli.
Yeah, Marco Tardelli and Toto Schilacci are like the two most memorable, for sure. For Italian football, yeah.
Yeah, those are the ones that I never forget.
But outside of Italian football, I'd say Timuri Ketsbaya once scored a goal for Newcastle, and he went Georgian guy, went absolutely berserk, and he ripped off his shirt and just started kicking the crap out of the advertisement board. He destroyed the advertisement board. He just like put his foot through it, just went mad. He went absolutely wild. Do you remember that?
Yeah. It reminds me of what Felipe Melo did something similar as well.
And the other person I would say is Pippo Inzaghi. Like Inzaghi was just the way he used to celebrate every goal like it was the winner in the Champions League final was just amazing. I loved his passion, the way that he used to celebrate. So yeah, those ones I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. And like the thing is, like he used to do all the time, but I'm just thinking like more like just one celebration that is particularly mad. I think of what's his name?
Marco Tardelli.
Yeah, but also Del Piero in that semi-final 2006 when he comes on and scores. Like,
well, I would say Grosso more like.
Yeah, but Grosso was doing Tardelli. He was imitating Tardelli. But but just the way that Del Piero is like celebrating and just he knows that he's just made amends for the Euro 2000 final by doing that. It was a crazy celebration. But yeah. And Felipe Melo at Inter, I remember when Inter scored, he didn't even score. Someone else scored, and he was celebrating by kicking the shit out of the boards and stuff like that. It was insane. Felipe Melo is just generally just a meme.
Yeah, he's a bit mad, isn't he?
Yeah. Nick Passaretti says, hi guys, question for the pod. Do you think the quality of the players is turning towards quick peaks instead of longevity? I feel as though players in older generations were good for longer compared to now. I've not done research to back this up, but I'm interested in your thoughts. And two, could you guys take current teams, let's say top 5 plus Milan, and pick which banter era players would be fun to see in today's squad? Example, I think Suso would have cooked in Milan's Pioli Bowl, and now if we didn't sign Pulisic, happy we did though. Even Jeremy Menez would be amazing. Well, my opinion is if I were to pick a player from the banter era who I actually think is a quality player at Inter, it'd be Rodrigo Palacio. I really think he had so much quality and such high football IQ. I feel bad that he played in one of the worst, if not the worst, Inter ever. Because I really think he would have done something. He could have done something at his peak for an Inter fighting for trophies and titles. Do you have anyone at Juve when they were at their worst?
Well, even when Juventus were at their worst, they still had some quality players. Like the banter era after Calciopoli, there was still like Chiellini, Bonucci, Del Piero. These are still quality players. So I don't think it's really deep. And then I would say now Juventus have been sort of by their standards in a banter era the last few years, but they've still had quality players during that time. So I don't think it really works for Juventus.
Yeah, but Zanetti and Cambiasso were also there during the banter era. But like my point is like not them, but someone who was there that was signed those years that could have maybe done something at a really good side, at a really good Juve side, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm struggling to be honest with you. I'm thinking of those 2 seasons like before Conte. I can't really think of any. If I'm thinking now, I mean, who could we take this season? I don't know.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Kalulu, Thuram, but I think they're good players. Like know,
Thuram for sure, he's excellent.
Yeah.
As for the turning towards quick peaks instead of longevity, I think that's inevitable given the sheer number of games that don't seem to be reducing, and I think that's going to end up in burnout, both mental and physical. But it's too soon to say anything about that right now.
Yeah, if it continues as we are, we're having the increasing games now, the Club World Cup. Yeah, I think that is inevitable. Someone like Yamal will be a good litmus test for that. See where he is at the age of 25, 26.
And Pedri as well. Next question, Matthew Iskander says, been seeing a lot more recent rumors linking Conte back to Juve. Could this be a bad case of reheated minestrone, as Nima says, or with a few additional games under his belt, the Juve give Tudor long-term contract? Osimhen to Juve has been picking up lately, albeit a lot will ride on the UCL for Juventus. Is that a smart move, you guys think? Well, let's start with the Osimhen to Juve thing. I think with Giuntoli on the way out, or diminished power, I don't see Osimhen going to Juve.
Yeah, politically doesn't make sense. Financially, it's just too much money. And then there's the whole Napoli De Laurentiis angle as well. So I just think it's a deal that's just a little bit
too complicated.
It's going to be a little bit too difficult, to do. But it also depends on kind of the new manager and what does he want. Antonio Conte, is he behind Osimhen? Someone that he didn't get to use at Napoli. So I think Osimhen is probably quite unrealistic. It's a very difficult deal. As for Antonio Conte, we'll discuss this in more detail in the once that's done. We'll do a proper deep dive on that. So I don't want to say too much now, other than just listen to what we said on the Monday episode, where Nima in particular spoke about it in a bit more detail. But I want to speak about it in more detail myself once it actually happens.
Yeah. And as for Tudor, I think we'll see him in the Serie A next season. I don't know where, but I think we will. Daniel Ljungström says, hey, fellas, I believe Lukumi has been really solid for Bologna this season. Defending under Italiano is not easy, and he's doing really well. His contract expires 26. Wouldn't he be a good option for pretty much all top 4 teams as a low-cost addition?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
Him and Bukema, I think, have both been really, really excellent this season. Both of them.
I think they've been great, and so has Miranda. I think that defense has been well. But I'm not entirely convinced by them either. Like, I mean, I don't know if I want to see them at an Inter or a Juve.
But we're not talking first choice here. We're talking sort of like fourth defender or something like that. Third or fourth defender. Yeah,
fair. That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Then I think as a rotation player, then not as a starter.
Third or fourth choice defender. See how they do. If they prove themselves, they can maybe work their way into becoming a first choice defender, maybe in season 2 or season 3. That's the level that they're at right now, probably.
Matty Still Mills says, hi guys. He says, Serie A has its big 3, Milan, Inter, Juve, and then as noted in a recent episode, Napoli is right in that mix too, second or third most successful club behind Juve and probably Inter over the last 5-10 years. What's the single biggest thing that has allowed Napoli to reach those heights and for the most part stay there? And conversely, what's the single biggest thing that prevents Roma from entering that echelon? A southern-ish team with a similar wage bill to Napoli and a rich history and club culture. Overall, I can't understand how Napoli continues to punch slightly above their weight, but I also can't understand why Roma just isn't a bigger and better club. So, look, I think with Napoli, I think De Laurentiis has been very prudent in running a fiscally responsible club. I think the fact that there's not that much money in Serie A has also kind of prevented Inter, Milan, Juve from spending the way they used to in the 90s and early 2000s, because it's just not you can't spend like that to keep up with the Premier League clubs. And I think that's allowed a more balanced Serie A, which is a good thing because it makes it much more exciting to watch for the neutral and all of that stuff that we've discussed on Monday as well. But I think that's one of the main reasons. And the main reason why Inter, Milan, and Juve haven't been able to push as much as they did. I mean, Juve tried and they collapsed spectacularly when they went Galactico with Ronaldo. As for Napoli, I think they've just done, the opening has been there and they've seized on it. And that's really impressive. You have to give credit where credit is due. There has been an opening and they've seized on it 100%. And that's really impressive. You have to give them credit for that.
Yeah, nothing to add. I think you've summed it up really well. Whenever the, two or more of the big three are not, are going through banter eras or going through bad periods, there's always going to be somebody that can fill the void. When Milan, when Juventus were, after Calciopoli, obviously Inter filled the void. When Milan and Inter were in banter eras, Juventus filled the void and went on a big streak. In the last few years, with the exception of that one season that Milan won the Scudetto, Milan and Juventus have been, relatively speaking, in disarray. So there's a void. Okay, Inter should have taken advantage of that, no doubt about it. But if two of the big three are in disarray, then there is still an opening there for somebody else to come in and challenge. And Napoli have done that. Having said that, I think that's been maybe more of the case this season. But having said that, though, I think that Napoli was so outstanding during that season with Spalletti that I don't think we can put it too much down to that. They were that outstanding in that season, and unexpected in terms of where they were at the start. But whereas this season, I think, is more down to filling that void. I think that this season's been a bit of a, it's been a perfect storm for Napoli. Milan and Juventus banter era seasons, Inter just not declining a little bit and focusing on the Champions League and so they've won, and they've won with a joint lowest points tally and the lowest goals scored ever. Do you know what I mean? That has played its part this season. I'm not, again, that's going to sound like I'm saying, I'm taking it away from Napoli. I'm not, but I'm saying that is a big factor.
It is that, and also I think it's to do also with the fact that look, when the opportunity presents itself, you have to capitalize on it, and I think Napoli have done just that, and they've done an absolutely brilliant job of it. So you got to give credit to them. As for why Roma just can't do it, that's a good question. I mean, Rome is a huge city, and between them, I think they got 5 Scudetti, which is just one more than Napoli, and that's not good. We can definitely say that that's a failure, and so there has been an opening, and I think there still will be an opening there this for 1 or 2 more seasons before Juventus come back, if they already don't come back next season, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, Napoli, but Roma absolutely have to really, the window is closing, and they've been there about, but they've failed to capitalize on it, whilst Napoli just have had all the building blocks in place to capitalize on it, pretty much. Next question, David says, after hearing the sad news that Sampdoria has been relegated to Serie C for the first time in their history, I'd like to understand the reason for their decline, and if there's any light at the end of the tunnel for the club, or if there is still fundamental problems with the club that will prevent the former Scudetto winners from making a return to Serie B and hopefully Serie A in the future. Thanks for your time. Look, it all kind of started with Massimo Ferrero and the legal troubles he had when he got arrested whilst he was hiring Dejan Stankovic, and that's why Stankovic didn't turn up. And then since then, it's been a complete shit show. And it's a shame. It's just, it literally has hit rock bottom. And now they're in Serie C. I was interviewed about this on the BBC, where I spoke about it. I've shared it on socials as well. So I suggest going into that, reading that. But it's basically been a perfect storm, but in the negative sense, where one thing has led to another. And now in a couple of seasons, quick succession, you have Sampdoria in Serie C, which is a disaster. Absolute disaster.
Yeah, it's a disaster. Sampdoria should not be in Serie C, and that's just if that happens, it's because it's been completely shambolic management and ownership of the club. Simple as that.
Yeah, there's nothing much to add. And then, of course, the appointment of Pirlo and, I don't know, Semplici and Sotil, and just, it's been a mess. Hamza Mir says, if Maicon would have come to Europe earlier and a top team earlier, do you guys think he would have been considered as one of the greatest fullbacks of all time? And also, do you guys want Carlo Ancelotti to do well in Brazil? And does he actually love Roma? Because I personally think he doesn't stand by his actions. The first part, well, Maicon is one of the greatest, if you ask me. I think what he did for 5-6 years in Europe and at Inter, where Dani Alves was at Barcelona, and he was better than Dani Alves, that makes him one of the greatest. Like, he was unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he was, for 5 years, he was world class. So yeah, I mean, not many players can be world class for half a decade. So yeah, he didn't last as long as he could because he didn't live the life off the pitch. He liked to drink. He liked to drink a lot, from what I've been told, and he liked to party, as most Brazilians do. And so yeah, it probably could have gone on a little bit longer if he'd have had the professionalism of a Cafu, for example. But yeah, still a legend. You can't take that away from him at all. And the second part of the question,
Ancelotti,
Yeah, Ancelotti, of course we want him to do well. He's a legend, and you want to see any Italian do well, and we hope he does well. But we hope that if Brazil play against Italy in the World Cup, then of course we're not going to be supporting Ancelotti. But yeah, of course we want him to do well. But like the last part of the question, absolutely, I've said that before. I wish he'd have taken the Roma job. That our job is opening, and I'm sure if he wanted that job this summer, he would have had it. That was his job this summer. No, don't try and talk. I don't want to hear anybody talk out of it with some verbal gymnastics. That job was there for Ancelotti. It was the perfect time for him, for the club. He could have had that job, but no, he didn't want to take it. So I'm sorry, I don't want to hear any bullshit excuses from anybody or from Ancelotti. That's on him. So no more. I don't want to hear it ever again about him that his dream is to manage Roma. It's just I don't want to hear it anymore.
No, I agreed. It was there, and he didn't. He went to Brazil, and it's going to be interesting because I think, if he were to will the Copa America and World Cup with Brazil, I mean, that is what a career.
Oh yeah, that's the official GOAT. Official, yeah.
It's unbelievable. Next question comes from Uncle Sharma. He says, "Hey lads, fantastic job as always. Question for the Q&A pod. Has Conceicao managed himself out of any top job in the foreseeable future? He used to be one of my top candidates as a potential Inzaghi successor at Inter, but now I'm not convinced at all. Not only in terms of the results, but his man management, tactics, and general demeanor didn't scream top-class manager. Thoughts?"
So who's that? I missed the name. Who's
Sergio Conceicao. Sergio Conceicao.
Oh, Conceicao. You'd think that, yeah, his next job is not going to be a top job. I think that's for certain. I wouldn't rule him out. It's hard to say, but yeah, he's got some repairing to do. Whether or not he's just gone into a club there that just was unmanageable, but we won't know that. Let's just say that he positioned himself after Porto to take a top job, and now he's positioned himself away from being able to take a top job. Let's say that. So he's gonna have to repair himself in his next job.
I agree 100% with that, and it's going to be interesting to see where he goes. I think I would have loved to have seen him at Lazio. That I'll say.
What I would have said is I'd have liked to have seen him in a whole season. Like, it's always difficult taking. I think top managers should just abide by, you know what, I'm not taking a job during the season, because you there's always the risk of something going wrong, especially if you walk into something like Conceicao did. I would have liked to have seen how Conceicao done in a full season, to be honest, because the results did start to improve towards the end. I know that Roma game they lost, but there was generally the points per game was improving the last month of the season. he would have now been just moving it. If he'd have done a whole season, he would have now just been moving into the second half of the season. Then we could have seen how we'd have done over a whole season. Do you know what I mean? So, but anyway, it's done now. So nothing you can do about it.
Yep. CJ Barilla says the Maradona and Pope story you told last week was insane. Do you have any other crazy Maradona stories?
Oh gosh, yeah. You know what? Park that. I'll answer that next week. I'll give you. I've got a few good stories, and they'll take a while. We've got 37 questions today. So,
Yeah.
So park that, and CJ, I'll answer that next week.
Cool. Next question. Rhys McQuigg says, hi guys, question for the next week's Q&A. My friends and I regularly meet up at weekends to catch up and chat about football over a few beers. An interesting discussion came up and I thought I'd ask for your thoughts. Being from Northern Ireland, everyone here supports an English team rather than a team from our own domestic league, just for context. And one of my friends suggested, who is an Arsenal fan, that winning the Premier League was a bigger triumph than winning the Champions League. Personally, I would prefer the Champions League as I think there's more honor being I was going to say, being a European champion than champion of your own domestic league. I'm a Manchester City fan. I know how much you both love City. And I assume the reason he had that opinion because Arsenal haven't ever won the European Cup, but I was surprised when some of the other guys who are Manchester United fans agree with him. Most of my friends are 5 to 10 years older than me, so I was wondering in Italy, do fans value the domestic league over the European Cup? One of the guys thought that because I'm slightly younger, that a younger generation value the European competition higher. I'm keen to know what your personal thoughts on this. Would you rather Inter or Juve win the Champions League or the Serie A? And what's the general feeling in Italy? Thanks for all the great podcast this season. I started listening to your podcast 2 years ago, and I totally fell in love with Italian football. I now watch more Serie A than I do Premier League, and I've adopted Lazio as my Italian team. Thanks again for all the great content. Wow, that's thank you. Thank you so much. Great that you're a Calcio fan because of us. That means a lot. As for domestic versus, look, I think it depends. I think, of course, if Napoli were to win the Champions League, they'd fly off into space. But I think it's because, like, winning the domestic league is so. I don't know. It's like if you know the history of Naples and how they've been discriminated against and not considered Italian by the North and stuff like that. For them to be Campioni d'Italia is such a it's a way of like impose, like it reinforces
one up them,
one up over those who've always looked down on them and discriminated against them. So it becomes it has completely
I think it depends on the team. For anybody outside of the big three, then I think you can make the argument that winning the Serie A, certainly for a southern team. But for Milan, Juventus, Inter, in today's day and age, post
Champions League,
let's say post 2006, let's say post 2010, but post Calciopoli, when Serie A has declined so much, then that the chances of winning the Champions League are so slim that it may never happen, and it could be a once in a lifetime chance. And that sounds exaggerated, but it's true. It's financially should be impossible for a Serie A team to win that. Whereas it's not like that. Milan, Juventus, Inter, they're going to win more Scudetti going in the future. It's just inevitable. If it's not now, if it's not next year, if it's not in 5 years, you're going to win, and you're going to win multiple titles. But Champions League, I mean, Juventus is next year 30 years. They haven't won a Champions League. I would have thought that when I was a kid and remember watching that final. Milan haven't won a Champions League 18 years. Inter, well, we'll see if they can make it, but 15 years. So it's something that it's very rare. So for those three teams, definitely Champions League.
100%. Next question. Dylan Motta says, hi guys, great work all season long from the pod. I've got two questions. One, earlier in the season, Atalanta were being talked about as a dark horse for the Scudetto, and seeing how Inter and Napoli have finished the season, I feel like they've been a bit of a disappointment. It would have been an incredible achievement for the size of the club, but looking over the results and seeing a draw at home to Torino after a missed penalty, a goalless draw against Cagliari, a loss at home to Lazio, another draw against Lecce, I can't help but think they blew a great opportunity to win a Scudetto. Did they achieve the best they could this season, or am I being too harsh? And the second question is, what are your thoughts on Gyökeres? Victor Gyökeres, I watch him week in, week out in Portugal, and I think he's the best striker in the world. From what I hear, he seems Premier League bound, but I was wondering which club do you think would be the best for him in the Serie A? Thanks again. I agree with what you said, Dylan. I think this season was very much a chance to do something. And I think Atalanta bottled it, because if you look at the firepower they have in attack, and if you look at the fact that they were so early eliminated from the Champions League, this could have been this was the season. This was a golden chance for them to do it. I agree 100% that I think they bottled it a little bit.
After they beat Juventus, they put themselves into a really good position, and then they didn't. Yeah, then it all fell away. But yeah, it's like you said before, seizing the opportunity, and this was an opportunity for a team like Atalanta, and they didn't seize it. Having said that, though, I do think that they didn't equip themselves well enough. They didn't buy a backup striker to Retegui when he had his off spells. They collapsed. They didn't have even a backup to Lookman really, but also they didn't have a backup to Ederson, and that was massive as well. So they didn't have any alternatives in those two key positions. And then the defense, the defense has always been something that they haven't really strengthened that area to how they should have done. And then they had a bit of an injury crisis in defence as well. They lost players like Scalvini, Kusanu for the whole season, and then they were in trouble. So, but yeah, a missed opportunity for sure.
Yeah, it's I agree 100% with that. And as for Gyökeres, I think he is one of the best strikers in Europe. I wouldn't go so far as to call him the best in the world. I think you need to prove it at a higher level before you can do that.
A bigger league, yeah. But I think he's going to go to Arsenal, though. To answer
I think so as well. I think he's probably going to go to Arsenal. But if he were to go to the Serie A, which club he would?
Juventus, maybe. They need a striker.
With Conte, yeah. With Conte, I think he would be a monster. Conte likes those kinds of players. Yeah. But I think, and also I think, I don't know. I wonder how it would work at Inter, because those two strikers are so fluid, but they do lack in efficiency, and this guy is insanely efficient. So, but equally at Milan as well. I think any of those three.
Well, yeah, all of the clubs are taken for sure.
Yeah. Jack Hacken says, "Hi, Nima and Mr. I hijacked your question to talk about maths. Got another Landau prime ideal theorem to solve using Gaussian integers for the pod. Is Milan finished as a serious sporting project with much lasting relevance in terms of competing for trophies? The squad constructed this season as a jumbled, unbalanced mess. Both Fonseca and Conceicao have been left hung out to dry, in my opinion, by a seemingly incapable or uncaring ownership. There's no sporting director to build a new project with. European football won't be played next season. I say these things as an observer who still believes in strong Italian projects that can generate world-class players for themselves, can be a fantastic presence in Europe like Inter has been. Milan has many elements that, if used with intelligence and a real idea behind it, like what Milan did under Maldini and Elliott. This is a very complicated story and one you've talked about a lot, but it's so critically important to show how it can actually get it done instead of how they can fail and flop. Thanks again, Forza Milan, Forza Milan. I don't think it's a finished sporting project, but I do think that it's the Jerry Cardinale RedBird project is hanging on by a thread in terms of credibility within the fan base. That I do think.
Well, they've lost the fan base. Let's be honest. They've lost them. When they haven't had them for a year, at least a year, but it's now, yeah, it seems untenable. It does. It seems untenable. And if they lose Reinders, like you said, it's pitchfork time. So where do we go from here? I don't know. They're going to have to do something. They're going to have to do an incredible market to try and win them over. But then they need to get a coach, and like they were too slow with finding a new coach. They were too slow in putting a sporting director that could then start that process in Tade. They're playing catch up. They're too far behind. They've probably lost Conte. They've lost Allegri. Not that I necessarily thought he was a good choice, but you know what I mean. They're already lacking options, as we said on the Monday show. So they're playing catch up already. They've been too slow, but that's because of poor management. Too slow. Slow.
Yeah, agreed. Speaking of Milan, Alex asked, I don't understand anyone who's ever praised Pavlovic. In my mind, he's a shockingly incompetent defender. His positioning is terrible and he's slow. Maldini once said, if I have to make a tackle, I know I've already failed as a defender. Pavlovic is always putting himself in situations to make a very difficult tackle, and it's not like he's great at that either. He makes the defense instantly weaker. Then he's got bricks for feet, and he can't make pressure free 20-yard passes consistently. I'm dumbfounded at how I seem to be the only one to think this way. Do you agree with me, or can you explain why I'm being too dramatic? And my second question, true or false, excluding Messi and Ronaldo, there's never been a better Ballon d'Or winner since Ricardo Kaká. I think there has. I mean, better
than who?
Than Kaká.
What?
Kaká won it, 2007, right?
Well, since Ronaldo. Sorry, I don't understand.
No. True or false? Excluding Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, there's never been a better Ballon d'Or winner since Kaká won it.
Since Kaká won it?
Yeah.
Well, there has barely been anyone. There's only been Modric, and who won it last year? Rodri. So, I mean, is that right? There hasn't been anyone else, is there? Did Benzema win it 1 year? Did Benzema?
No, yeah, Benzema won it 1 year, and
so that's it. So basically, you're saying Kaká, Modric, Benzema
or Rodri.
So
I think we should count Lewandowski as well, because Lewandowski deserved
he deserved it. We didn't get it, so it doesn't count. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think for based on the season that all of those players had in winning the Ballon d'Or that year, I think yes, Kaká probably was the best. What he did that year in Champions League, in winning Milan the Champions League, I think yes, he had a better individual, more important, impactful season for his club. Then if you want to talk about who was better in over their whole careers, then that's another debate. But yes, the best Ballon d'Or season, I would probably agree. Yeah, probably was Kaká out of all those players.
I agree. But if we're talking as a career as a whole, Modric for me is one of the most. I don't understand why he's so underrated. He's one of the greatest midfielders to ever play the game, in my opinion.
Because those kind of players generally don't get rated because they don't score enough goals, they don't assist enough. So they're not. So they're stat wankers won't appreciate them.
I just think Luka Modric is one of the greatest midfielders to ever play the game.
Oh, no doubt about it.
I mean,
no doubt about it. He's a genius.
Really genius. As for the Pavlovic question, I do think he's slow, but I do think that if he has in a system, if Conte went to Milan and he could do something with Pavlovic, is what I'm saying. I don't think he's the kind of player who leads a defense, but I think he's one that can work in a defense.
He's got leadership qualities, no doubt. Those probably his best qualities is his leadership qualities. He's so aggressive, so committed, never fearless, very physical. Aerial battles, very good. The problem I have with him is he plays as an individual defender. He doesn't play as a team defender, which is something you can say about pretty much all the Milan defenders. To be honest with you, you can say that about Tomori and about Teo, that they play like individual defenders. They don't play in a unit. They don't play in a line. That's my biggest issue with him. He goes off and does his own thing. He's impulsive. Yeah. He goes off and does his own thing. He needs a manager or a partner, centre-back partner also that can rein him in. And if they can do that, then he does have some qualities that maybe that can be utilised. Let's say that.
Giuseppe Di Benedetto says, "Ciao Nima and Carlo, hope you're both doing well." He talks about the games being played at once, and he says, "I really miss when the matches were played simultaneously, and this weekend showed why it can be so awesome. Any chance we get more of this, or will it just be reserved for the last few weeks of the season with tight races?" Another question. I read a report that Brazil might get expelled from the World Cup 2026 due to political involvement in their FA president being booted and forced back in.
FIFA make these threats all the time, and then nothing ever comes of them. So
yeah,
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't think
unless you're Russia.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you're Russia.
Yeah. Unless you're Russia.
Otherwise, do what you want, bomb who you want, and
kill who you want.
You might not be
do what you want. It's exactly
nothing will happen.
Nothing will happen. And as for the thing with that, it's about the rights. The DAZN, who own the rights in Italy, were furious that they did this because they want to show as many games as over many. They want to have as many games spread over as many days as possible.
Yeah, of course,
to maximize their eyeballs.
Paying for TV rights. Yeah. Plus, I think it works. It only really works in the last few rounds in terms of the excitement value because everything's on the line, the table's changing, and there's jeopardy, and there's something. Do you know what I mean? To play for. if you do that in match day 1 or match day 2, match day 3, oh well, big deal. Oh, Inter have gone, 1 point ahead of Napoli on match day 3. Oh, Napoli are back 1 point. But who cares? It doesn't mean anything at that stage. But in match day 37, match day 38, yes, it does mean a lot. So I think that's why it works on the final match days.
Yeah. Next, I agree, 100%. Akbar Palavan says, now that Palermo failed to get promoted, which Serie A club should sign Matteo Brunori? I think Kristovic is going to leave Lecce, so I'm going to go with Lecce.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I haven't seen much of him, so I'm going on your Serie B expertise.
Hopefully, he stays at Palermo though, because I want Palermo back up as soon as possible. Yeah. Right. Next question. Is it true that English media have a certain agenda against Italian teams? When a Spanish club like Barcelona, Real Madrid are doing really well, they tend to overhype it, but that's not the case with Italian teams. Do you reckon?
Generally, yes. But I will say one thing. I've been seeing a lot of love for Inter in the English media this season. Honestly, I'm not just saying that.
No, I have.
I think part of it is to do with the fact that Inter play quite a physical game, and that I think the culture of England they like that. They like the kind of brave, kind of fearless. Those are kind of English values, and I think maybe that's part of it. To be honest with you, so
I think it's also because of the football that Inzaghi plays, and over the couple of seasons, the results he's had against English teams, beating Liverpool at Anfield, for example, beating Arsenal, how close they got to Manchester City. When you do things like that, that gives, and also they're
against English teams, because we always used to make fun that we used to say that Pirlo only became rated by the English media after Euro 2012 when he put in that that clinic against England in the quarterfinals, and he's 33 years old. But before then, Pirlo was like no one even cared. And the same with Zlatan. Zlatan used to get mocked by the English media as overrated and as a bomber. Then he scored that wonder goal, in the 4-4, where you remember that bicycle, or was it 4-2, where he did that bicycle kick from the halfway line. After that, he was God in the English. So I think you're right. I think it's when you do it against an English team, English media all of a sudden it's like you've won their respect. Otherwise, you don't exist. Basically,
no, exactly.
You're unproven until you do it against an English team.
Exactly.
Now you're tried and tested.
Tried and tested. Premier League proven. But also I have to say, stylistically, I've always maintained and always thought that Simone Inzaghi is the Italian coach whose football is best suited to the Premier League. I've always thought that, even since he was at Lazio, and just stylistically and tactically. So there is that. Next question from Akbar is: give me 3 historic matches only involving provincial sides that you wish you'd witnessed in person. Mine would be something like Genoa versus Liverpool from 1992 UEFA Cup. I just want to see that Branco free kick and Udinese 3, Hellas Verona 5 in their title-winning season. What are your 3?
Yeah, the Genoa one, absolutely. I remember watching that Genoa. I remember watching the win at Anfield, or the draw. They drew at Anfield, didn't they? Or did they win at Anfield? God, I can't remember. They went through. Yeah, they won at Anfield, didn't they? They won 2-1. It was a historic win. Yeah, that one for sure. I would stay on that season. Torino beating Real. I mean, I don't know if you'd call Torino provincial, but okay. Torino beating Real Madrid that season. That was magical as well. That was fantastic. Probably those 2. I would say.
I mean, Torino. I wish I would have seen Torino with Mondonico. Just generally, when they were in Europe, and him holding up the chair in protest is just such an iconic image. I wish I would have seen that. That route on the route to that final. I wish I would have seen that. I don't know if you can call them provincial, but I guess Parma is a provincial side. I would have loved to see them when they were at their peak, winning European trophies.
I watched all of that. I mean, we were younger. We were old enough to. I remember watching all of those games.
I mean, witnessed in person, live.
In person, yeah.
Well, I wish I could have been at the Tardini when they won the Cup Winners' Cup or the UEFA Cup, for example.
Yeah, definitely.
That's something I wish I would have seen. I wish
the Hellas season is a good one. I like that. I like that Hellas season. Caprello and Elkia scoring a goal without his boot. His boot came off in the move, and then he scored. I mean, like those kind of stories, fantastic.
Yeah. And I wish I could have been there when Cagliari won the Scudetto.
I would have loved to have been there the day that Gigi Riva broke a supporter's arm with a shot that went wide and into the crowd, and it was so hard that it broke the arm of the supporter. I'd love to have been there that day. I live for those stories.
Yeah, me too. On a side note, are you planning to have Richard Howe on the pod? He's got a new book about the Hellas Verona side coming up at the end of the month. No, I don't think we've spoken about that. But
we'll check it out.
Yeah, definitely. One more thing, guys. How real was Carlo Garganese's Roma curse? He hyped up Roma to beat Atalanta to secure a top 4. And what happened next? Of course, they then fell at the last hurdle. This has been many Roma fans saying that you've cursed them.
To be fair, I said if Roma beat I said the Atalanta game is key. If you listen back to what I said, if Roma get a result against Atalanta, I fancy them because they will beat Milan and they will beat Torino. They beat Milan, they beat Torino. So I got that. I said the Atalanta game was key. I said that. I did say that. I did say it was key.
Yeah, you did. Sergio Leone says, hi guys, just a quick question. What's your favorite football show of all time? Obviously, Football Italia on Channel 4 is up there with the legend that is James Richardson, but I obviously loved a show called Euro Goals that aired on Eurosport. I used to rush home from school on a Monday afternoon and wait for it to come on so I could catch all the highlights from the weekend's game across Europe. These were the days before YouTube, etc. So it was essential viewing.
Everything was Euro something, wasn't it, in the 90s? Euro trash, Euro goals, Euro sport, Eurovision.
Yeah, so it was essential viewing to have any knowledge that what was happening across the continent and be aware of the next future stars. The Eredivisie segment was always a great watch. Those days make me miss how much more competitive football was across the continent. And yes, Euro Goals is a classic. I used to live for that show, Euro Goals. I would never miss an episode. They wouldn't show the Premier League. And I'm not sure they had the rights for the Serie A as well, but every other league, Spain, Germany, France, Portugal, Holland, it was the best show ever. Yeah, 100%. Euro Goals.
Back when you couldn't watch it any other way. There was no internet. There was no other way of accessing or consuming, seeing those goals. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but great show. I mean, I loved. There used to be a show in England called Saint and Greavesy, with Jimmy Greaves and Ian St. John. They used to have their own show, and it was fantastic because Jimmy Greaves, obviously legendary striker, played in Italy, played for Milan, was such a great character, and it used to be so funny. It used to be good like banter, but they used to be this show like the highlights. They would have great they would discuss the games, but it was also funny. It was good to watch. It was I used to really like that. That was as a kid. But yeah, because that's a Football Italia, of course, legendary show for those in England. But then all the Italian ones as well. I love watching all the highlight shows. Domenico Sportiva, 90 Minuto. Sunday nights after the games, and they used to have all those debates in the studio with the Moviola, and you'd always get a young Italian just girl just sitting there, like would say nothing. She'd just be there just to look pretty. Just Italian culture, wasn't it? So I used to love those shows. And it's
Velina, I think they call them, and they still got them. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
like their job is to just sit there and look pretty.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, next question. Ganz Totti says, hey Nima, hey Carlo. Number one, why doesn't ADL make Osimhen the centerpiece of the Napoli project after the Scudetto? I would have assumed that they'd build the team around him. I'd like to get your thoughts on why this didn't happen. And two, if you were to create a starter kit for Italian football, what would it contain? I want to induct my fiancée into Serie A. I'll tell you how oblivious she is to football. She used to live near the San Siro when she was doing her master's in Italy, and she doesn't know anything about the Milan derby. Well, okay, so the first one, why he doesn't make it, I think that relationship is just so toxic. And Osimhen is the way he is, and everything that happened. I don't know how you rehabilitate that. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, for sure. Now, yeah, it's done now. But at the time, it was also to be expected. Like Osimhen, probably, he'd done everything he could do, and then it was time to move on. But they handled it badly. Napoli handled it badly, which we discussed before, about De Laurentiis in the Monday show. Yeah, and I think
what if you were to create a starter kit for Italian football? What would it contain?
In what way? I don't understand. Like,
yeah, I think he means like to get someone interested.
Oh right. Well, you would just show them loads of videos of the craziness for starters, because all the mad stuff that goes on, and
the tifos. Honest to God, the tifos.
Tifos, yeah. But you'd also show a picture of the match day 37 of the Serie A and say, look, every single season is super competitive, and it goes down to the wire. And then you'd compare that to the Premier League and say, well, look, everything's decided pretty much. Well, I know to be fair, the Champions League was tight in Premier League this season as well. But generally, so yeah, I think there's that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I agree with that. But if I were to pick 3 matches that she could go to, or someone would go to fall in love, it'd be the Rome derby, the Milan derby, and Napoli Juve. Just enjoy.
Yeah. I'd agree with that.
Kunal Soni says, thanks for your last answer. I was listening to the Q&A pod about interesting, and it was interesting to note the question on Luca Toni and Vieri. My question is, could their legacy have been any different? In 2006 World Cup final versus France, around the 60th minute, Luca Toni scored a valid goal ruled out for offside. If we had offside technology and the goal stood, would he have been more of a hero with 3 goals in the World Cup? He was offside by a mile. What's he on about?
I don't think he was offside by a mile, but from what I remember, he was offside.
It was clear offside. I don't know. I remember watching
from a free kick.
Yeah.
I don't think it was clear, but I think he was offside. He wasn't miles offside. I remember
it was a meter from what I remember. Like just as the free kick was hit, he was a meter ahead of the last defender. Anyway, also for Vieri and Inzaghi in 2002 World Cup, Italy had 2 valid goals ruled out for offside versus Croatia. If Italy had those allowed,
they had 2. They had 5 disallowed.
Yeah, they had 5 in 3 games.
5.
Yeah. And Italy had those allowed. Their opponents would have been USA in round of 16, a weak Germany in the quarterfinals, South Korea in the semifinals, and Brazil in the final. Would you have favored Italy to realistically win the whole thing in 2002, or maybe come second to Brazil if there was offside and goal line technology and it was used properly? 100%.
The referee let's be honest, the referee wasn't bought.
As Materazzi said himself when he was on our pod as a guest, he said the 2002 team was better than the 2016.
Yeah.
And I think he has there's lots to say.
I don't count that World Cup. Honestly, the World Cup goes from 1998 to 2006. 2002 should be struck from the record. That was the most corrupt World Cup we've ever seen. And I include 1978 when the Argentina junta bought the World Cup as well.
Yeah.
So I would just, we had a great team. But the only thing we were lacking was probably centre mid. We if we had Gattuso, that was the one thing that 2006 was stronger. They had Gattuso and Pirlo, who were both brilliant. We didn't have that in 2002. We had like Tomasi, Zanetti. Like we probably could have been a little bit stronger in that area, but otherwise it's just world-class player after world-class player.
For sure, 1000%. As for Luca Toni, I still think he is a hero. I thought he was outstanding in that World Cup. I don't care that he just scored 2 goals. I remember the game against Ghana. I thought he was brilliant.
I wouldn't say outstanding. I would say good.
Him. I thought he was great.
I wouldn't say, I mean, I think he was, I wouldn't say outstanding, but I thought he had a good World Cup. Yeah.
Next question. Craig Milner says, "Hi guys, what's happening with the Serie B playouts? I've read something about fraudulent payments by the Brescia owner. Can you shed any light on what's going on and how the clubs are affected?" Look, we're going to get back to this when we know what's going to happen. But basically, there is a chance, from what I've understood, I haven't checked the news today, but there is a chance that Brescia get relegated, and somehow that means the Sampdoria stay up. This
happens every year.
Yeah,
it happens every single year. It's one of those things like the stadiums where I'm just not interested. Just tell me what the teams are before the first match day, and then we'll go from there. I'm just not interested. It's the same stuff every single year. It's just boring now.
So basically, there were some irregularities and a credit note allowing Brescia to prove their financial stability, so they could be docked 4 points. But I've not seen what happens. I've not seen what's going to happen. I've not seen anything definitive about it. So I really don't know. But what we do know is that there could be a situation. I mean, the last thing I know is that it's still being investigated. So I really don't know. I really don't know. It's absolutely mental. We'll have to wait and see what happens. I'm looking now, and it's like he's Gravina has brought in. It's just 1 hour ago. Gravina has opened up a panel with 11 consiglieri, where
it's the Godfather now.
Yeah, it's just mental, and they're all trying to decide what to do with this, and it's like it's an absolute mess.
Yeah, it's just whatever.
I really don't know what's going to happen.
Whoever pays more will stay up. Okay, there you go. I said it.
No, I really don't know what to say, Craig, because it's a developing story, and when it comes to the Serie B every year, and when Cellino's involved, I really don't know. We have to wait and see. It's way too soon. Come back in July when the season's 1 week away from starting. Then by then they'll
August.
August, yeah. But usually July. I mean, it's just mad, absolute madness. Jamie Drum says, "Hi guys, as we're approaching the Champions League final, my question this week is, which are your favorite Champions League final venues outside of Italy? Your top 3 and also your top 3 worst. Also a venue you'd like to see host a Champions League final in the future. P.S. Can we get Thogden on the pod as a surprise guest for Nima? No, we cannot." So top 3 Champions League final venues: Bernabeu, Santiago Bernabeu, Wembley, the Allianz in Munich is always a good one. I would like to see it played at Friends, or no, it's not called Friends anymore. It's called, what is it? Strawberry Arena in Stockholm. It'd be nice to see it there. It's actually a good stadium. Where else? Saint-Denis in Paris.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, it's not close enough to the pitch for me. I've been to that stadium quite a few times. I like stadiums. This is the one thing I like about English stadiums. I like how close they are to the pitch. It creates a great atmosphere. So I do like stadiums like that.
I know that it's not near, but I would love to see it at the Stadio Olimpico. In Rome. It's a cool stadium.
It has been there before, isn't it? It was there 84. It was there when United won it against not United, Chelsea.
It was United as Barcelona.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, United Barcelona. Yeah.
When Lionel Messi wins a header against Rio Ferdinand.
Yes,
I still don't understand how that's possible. How does Lionel Messi win a header against Rio Ferdinand?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
And scores. Anyway. Yeah. Kevin asks, question for the pod: where do you think Sarri's Napoli would finish in the Serie A in each of the last 5 seasons? Previous 5 seasons for reference: Juventus, which was Sarri; Inter with Conte; Milan, Pioli; Napoli, Spalletti; Inter, Inzaghi. This year, Conte, Napoli. I think he would win the Serie A this season. I think he would win it. I think he would also win it in 2020. I think he would win it in 2022. Yeah. But other than that, I don't think he would have. I don't think when maybe Conte's Inter in 21, but other than that, I don't think he beats Napoli Spalletti. I don't think he beats Inzaghi's Inter. I don't think he beats Conte's Inter, maybe. But his own Juve, Pioli's Milan, and Conte's Napoli, absolutely. I
agree. Yeah, I agree with all of that.
Yeah. Sassano says, "Ciao guys, could you do a deep dive on Farioli tactics and results, perhaps focusing on Ajax, but also generally since he became a coach?"
We'll have to get back to you on that one.
Yeah.
He's done a great job at Ajax this season with a team that's an ordinary team. I'll be honest. On paper, this is a team that's way off the level of PSV.
But it was a collapse.
It was not. Yeah, I was coming to that. It was a total collapse. But similarly to like what you've said, what you've said about kind of, Baroni and Italiano. Like, yes, they fell away at the end of the season. They put themselves in a position where, like with Lazio, that they should not have thrown it away. But I'm sorry, but that Ajax squad, compare that to the PSV. PSV are light years ahead of Ajax in terms of quality. So he'd done an incredible job to really win the. I mean, it's a collapse. Yeah, it's a total collapse. But until then, he'd done a great job. It's a shame. It's a shame. But yeah, he's definitely somebody to look out for. At Nice, he was very much more. I mean, he's a disciple of De Zerbi, but he was actually more famed for his defensive qualities when he was in France. So that's kind of quite strange.
Just to end that last question about Il Giorno, I'm just going to quote the Il Giorno about the question about Craig Milner about the Serie A playouts. Il Giorno writes today. This is today's Il Giorno. Serie B is in complete and total chaos. They still have to decide when the playout, who plays the playout, and when. That's from today's Il Giorno. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, no surprise there.
Yeah. Jonas Scooby said, as for Farioli, what he did is, I think, like you said, I agree with what you said, but I still think that you can't collapse like that. You can't bottle a lead like that. And that's just not good enough. Jonas Scooby, we'll see what happens for him now. He's still very young, so there's time for him to recover from that and what he learns from it. And I don't know, the fact that he left Ajax by mutual consent is quite interesting. Jonas, it'll be interesting to see what he says when he starts speaking about it. Jonas Scooby says, "Hi guys, question for the pod. Conte is definitely leaving Naples, and judging by the images following the game with him and De Laurentiis, he'd rather live on Mars than stay in Naples. So would like to propose a supposition that Roma would actually be the ideal club for him. The following factors would point to the Roma bench being appealing for Conte. The Roman squad has shown since Nonno's return that it's actually capable of playing competent football. The squad is comprised of players suited for Conte's tactics. There are at least a couple of Conte-esque players such as Konen and Dika. And if he won the Scudetto with Roma, he would win it yet another Serie A club. Winning at Roma is nigh impossible, and should he succeed, he would be elevated to God status, which his ego practically craves. With this said, I wonder why Conte has not even been linked with Roma, as the Fraudkins have been shown to sign big-name coaches before. Personally, I don't want him here, and I also consider it highly unlikely, but would it not make sense?"
Well, maybe he's the coach that Ranieri's talking about. I can't believe that no one's leaked this story. Maybe it is. Maybe there's gonna be a bomba, and we're gonna be completely a bombazzo, and we're gonna be completely shocked.
I don't see.
I don't see it, but it would be a great story if it was.
Yeah, I think this was Conte's way of, this is the weakest club he wants to coach. Napoli, quote unquote, weakest. I think his ego is at the biggest. I think he still sees himself at Real Madrid. Like he sees himself there, that level of a club. Vito Campanelli says, "Hi guys, I know Ranieri is at an age where he should ride off into the sunset, but isn't Roma in a position for him to stay one more season and make a legit Scudetto run? If he started at the beginning of the season, they would be in the running right now." Well, I did discuss this on Monday. And I don't know. It depends. And I think your answer on Monday, I want to defer to that. It depends on whoever it is. They have to stand in the shadow. They have to be able to handle the shadow of Ranieri. So Mancini, something like that. Conte, Mancini, someone like that.
Yeah, agreed.
But yeah, it is a bit. It does tickle me a little bit to see Ranieri start giving a full season, doesn't it? But he is old, so yeah. Yeah. Robbie Bianconeri says, hi guys, with Dusan Vlahovic potentially staying at Juve for his final year of his contract and assuming rumors that Conte's appointment are true, do you think Conte has the ability to revive Vlahovic's career at Juve, or do you believe Dusan's opportunity has already passed?
No, it's already passed. He owns too much money, and there's no way that Juventus are going to pay him. It's done. It's done. Forget about the manager. It's the same way that it's done as the way that Osimhen was done when Conte took over, and Conte accepted that and said, "Look, it's out of my hands. It's a club matter." So it's the same with Vlahovic. Do I think he could have revived him? I mean, he managed to get Lukaku to play with his back to goal. And people forget how bad he was playing with his back to goal until Conte took hold of him. So, I mean, anything's possible, but I just think that technically Lukaku is was always a far superior player. Like, even before then, Lukaku would score goals where he'd go on these great runs, like the goal he scored in the weekend, you know, and he had much more technical ability in that sense. Individual technical ability than
so Lukaku to Juve confirmed then, yeah, with Conte.
I wouldn't rule it out, mate. I wouldn't rule it out.
Bringing the back. I mean, to be honest, that's not a like where Conte goes, so should Lukaku go. Like, honestly,
I wouldn't completely rule it out. I think it's unlikely, but I wouldn't rule it out.
Scott Monroe says, hi guys, after the emotional scenes after the final whistle at the Stadio Olimpico, what is Claudio Ranieri's legacy at Roma after his third tenure? I couldn't think of a better send-off after what he has done for the club. It would have been my wildest dreams to see Roma fighting for the Champions League after that horrible start on De Rossi and Juric. We don't talk about Juric's reign. Thanks, guys. Great pod as usual, and love the retro jerseys as always. Also, I think his legacy will be just that. He's one of Roma's and Rome's greatest gentlemen and a club icon and a legend.
Yeah, simple as that.
It's a shame he never won a trophy with them.
And a gentleman, and Andrea Stramaccioni told an incredible story that when he took over the job, the Inter job from Ranieri, that Ranieri actually, having been sacked, waited for him to arrive at the training ground so he could hand over his keys to I mean, can you believe that after you've been sacked to do that? I mean, that just tells you everything about what an incredible person Ranieri is. Just one in a million. Great person.
What a gentleman. Next question, Stefan says, what should Inter do regarding Pio Esposito? Should they give him the fourth spot or loan him out? I know what they will likely do give to the Italian aversion to youth. Regards, Stefan Stein. Listen, no. Pio Esposito is a young player. He's had an unbelievable breakout season in the Serie B. He is a monster, physical monster. He's a goal scorer. He's a prima punta. I don't want him rotting away on Inzaghi's bench. No fourth spot nonsense. Rotation players should be already experienced players that are ready, that can hit the ground running. Young players need to play consistently. As such, I hope Spezia get promoted to the Serie A, and I hope he stays there for another season in an environment he knows, so he can fully flourish in that environment at the club that knows him, under a coach that knows him, and so on and so forth.
Agreed. Yeah, 100%.
And then we can see what happens to him. He's already extended with Inter, so he's safe. So yeah, definitely keep him there. Next question, Mohamed Saleh says, hi guys, I've been a fan of this pod for over a year. I wish I'd found out about you guys earlier. A few weeks ago, you and Carlo were talking about Cannavaro versus Pirlo for the Ballon d'Or in 06, and I couldn't help but think about why Buffon was not in the conversation. In that World Cup run, Italy conceded only 2 goals, one of which was a penalty, and the other being own goal by Zaccardi. Zaccardo. 0 goals from open play, which is insane. Of course, a lot of that praise goes to Cannavaro. Nonetheless, an amazing achievement from Gigi. I wish he had won it at some point in his career. To me, Buffon was the reason I became a fan of football, and Juve was truly the complete goalkeeper in my opinion. Stat-wise, I can't remember a single game of him conceding more than 4 goals in a single game. Watching him play, was never worried about direct free kicks shot against him in an era of absolute free kick monsters. My question to you guys, in your opinion, is Buffon considered the greatest or one of the greatest? I always see on socials where people rate a Manuel Neuer or a Lev Yashin, Iker Casillas. Surprisingly, I rarely ever seen anyone talk about Dino Zoff. Also, you guys talk about the favorite save of all time. How about your favorite Buffon save of all time? Personally, the save against Bulgaria is mine. Keep up the good work. Best of Buffon fanboy. What do you make of it?
First of all, I agree with. I disagree. I think Cannavaro absolutely deserved the Ballon d'Or in 2006. I was at the World Cup. I watched every single game live, apart from the final. And honestly, I was just had no words watching Cannavaro live and his performances. It was. I would argue. I'm not saying Cannavaro is the best World Cup defender of all time. Of course not. But I'm saying there's never been a better World Cup by a defender than Cannavaro in 2006. Like, if you watch every single one of his games, it was just unbelievable. It was just a clinic. He was just perfection. Unbelievable. So for that reason, I think, given the weight of the World Cup, I think he absolutely deserved it. He was the best player at that World Cup without a doubt, and it just incredible. As for Buffon, yes, I mean, no doubt one of the greatest goalkeepers of all time. For me personally, he is the greatest goalkeeper of all time because I think he is the most complete goalkeeper of all time. As for his favourite saves, the Bulgaria one was incredible. I think I always go back to the one from Inzaghi in the 2003 Champions League final.
That's a goal. Like
Inzaghi's reaction says it all. Like, Inzaghi was like, he couldn't believe it. Like, watch Inzaghi's reaction after that.
How is that not a goal? That's a goal.
It's a miracle. He's going the other way, and he still manages to push his way and still save it with a strong hand. Inzaghi's reaction is just one of like he couldn't believe that.
No one could. I thought that was a goal. That was a goal. Like that's still a goal. Like, I don't understand.
And the other favourite one, and it's weird that two of these ended up in defeats, was the one he made in Euro 2016 from was it Thomas Muller at 1-0? They were losing 1-0, and he celebrated it like he'd saved it, like he'd won them the game, and then Italy equalised and took it to extra time and penalties, and unfortunately Italy lost. Simone Zaza being an idiot, and Pele, and but anyway, but those three are kind of like the memorable ones, and then of course his debut.
I was about to say that his debut against Milan for Parma on George Weah.
Yeah, George Weah, Baggio, Boban. But that was more the overall performance. But in terms of memorable, that's there as well. Yeah.
Filippo Cacamo says, "Ciao ragazzi, I really enjoyed the Lorenzo Luca interview and was wondering if you guys would consider translating the occasional press conference next season, as nowadays most of these presses are available in full on YouTube but not in English. Patrick Kendrick provided in English translation for Spalletti during the Euros and it was fantastic. Alternatively, translating some of the classic Italian presses of all time would be, or of the past, would be very entertaining. Maybe provide some quick words beforehand to set up the situation. This could be a good offering to patrons during the summer months, or a reliable bridge between player interviews. Would love to hear your thoughts on this." The presses that are now, they do. I think they most of them have English translations. I think they own the copyright to them, so I don't think we can do it as such. There'll be a copyright.
If the league would pay us, would gladly provide that.
Yeah, exactly. But then you wouldn't have a problem with
the league. Would rather spend their money on sending pseudo chefs to
do bologna sandwiches without the shirts on at the Stadio Olimpico.
Yeah.
No, but as for the classic Italian presses of the past, I mean, if there wasn't, that could be something. It depends. I mean, if we can find the full videos and so on, and then talk about the context.
Well, Malezzani, Cattuso,
Trapattoni,
but these are all foreign shores. Yeah.
Sometimes maybe shit, sometimes maybe good.
Sometimes it may be good, sometimes it may be shit.
Yeah, so good. Magnus Kaufman says, "Hi guys, after that Inter game against Lazio, I had to take a break from football just to take my mind off the game. I'm not over it. To my question, who do you think will win the Serie B playoffs? I think Spezia. Also, Nima, if Spezia don't get up to the Serie A, which club would you see Pios Esposito at loan for the 25-26 season? It's really important that he gets regular minutes. Also, great job and congrats on the Luca interview." Look, I really hope Spezia make it, but if they don't make it, I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Empoli would have been good.
Yeah, Empoli would have been great, but they're down, and so I don't know. I really don't know. For me, Spezia is the perfect place. I don't want to like Genoa. Pinamonti's the top dog there, so you wouldn't play because of Pinamonti, and that's stupid. Then I know Napoli are really interested in him. They want to buy him, but Inter want to keep him. I don't know. I really think we have to. I don't know. I really don't know. I would want to say Lecce, but then
Como under Fabregas could be quite interesting.
Yeah, why not?
Because he gives the youngsters and he's good at developing players. But
if Fabregas stays there, of course.
If he stays, I think he will. But if he doesn't, then that's a risk. Yeah.
Next question. Graham Toddes says, "Hi guys, so glad to see the TikTok page taken off. Even though Carlo is anti-Gen Z, my gen, it is for sure the best way to reach big audience fast and grow your community. Anyways, my question is, what do you make of the Juventus Theo Hernandez links? Also, how could that be financed? If you were looking at Osimhen, Leoni, and Theo this summer, they're surely going to have to spend somewhere between 120, 130 million at least. Seems like the Tonali dream has been abandoned as well. How can Juventus manage the revenue to pursue that kind of a mercato? Love from America."
Well, obviously they're not going to be able to sign all of them, and I don't know how much is in the Theo links. If I'm totally honest, I don't know anything about it. But if Conte comes in and plays a wing back system, then Theo is perfect for him to play as a wing back in a 3-4, 3-5, 3-5-2. And given he has 1 year left on his contract, I think Milan will sell him this summer. He will be available at a much more affordable price, and I don't think there's as much interest on the continent as maybe you'd initially think. And I think he likes being in Italy. I think he's happy in Italy.
Yeah.
He likes Italy, his family, his wife, kids. So maybe he'd rather stay in Italy. So who knows? If Juventus could sell Cambiasso for like 65 million or something, and then buy Theo for look, Como bid 40 million for him in January, which was accepted. So his value is going to have gone down since then. So if we're talking 30, 35 million for Theo Hernandez, and you're selling Cambiasso for double that, I mean, that's good business. I know there's the Italian angle, but it's good business from Juventus. So who knows?
And with Conte there, that would definitely be something that he would like. Riccardo Benvenuti says, "I got 3 short questions. Will Inter buy a prominent midfielder for next season? Why has Spal become so bad in that they were lucky just to beat Milan Futura? And how the hell is Sampdoria in Serie C?" Well, we've already discussed Sampdoria in Serie C and the mess that could see that maybe they're not in Serie C already. As for Spal, it's not been an easy situation there at all. And sometimes you see this when clubs go from Serie B to Serie C, that they struggle to find a way to recalibrate themselves. But it's not been good, but they did avoid relegation, and we'll see what happens, what Joe Tacopina and his investors decide to do going into next season. But it's we want to see Joe do well. We want to see Spal do well. It's a classic club, so we'd love to see them back at least in the Serie B to start with, and then maybe Serie A. As for Inter buying a prominent midfield, well, they've already bought Petar Sucic, who is a very good player. I think people need to, they don't know him as well, but I think he's going to be one of the standout players next season. And then we'll see what happens after the Champions League final when they start planning. First of all, with Inzaghi, if he's going to stay. He just said today that he's focusing on the Champions League, and then he's going to sit down with the club and they're going to together decide what's best for Inter. That's what he said, whether it means him staying or leaving and everything else. But he said what's best for Inter is what's going to be discussed. So that's that. Next question. Tomo says, Ciao Mancolo, hope you're well. I asked this question straight after the game, but as a Lazio fan, I can't help but be disappointed by the season. Disappointing exit in the Europa League, poor performances in the big games this season, lackluster second half of the season, which has been seen us from challenging the Champions League spots to out of Europe altogether. Lazio don't have all the quality and depth to challenge, and Lotito won't spend on quality. Baroni's refusal to adapt and give fringe players a chance. Lazio only have themselves to blame, and now they're out of Europe, and it will be more difficult next season as they fail to capitalize on their impressive start. What's your thoughts? Well, I mean, we discussed this on the Monday pod, didn't we? In detail about overall 7th is what you can expect, but given how the season developed, it is rather disappointing.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Exactly. Yeah, we went through all of this. We answered this question on Monday, so I don't add much. But yeah, given where they were at, they choked, and they choked the final day, big time choke on the final day of the season, not beating Lecce or not even drawing to Lecce at home when they were down to 10 men for the second half as well. That's up there with the biggest choke, last day chokes that we've probably seen in Italian football. Massive choke.
Marco Maganucco says, Channing and Carl, I got some question regarding these Inzaghi to Saudi Arabia rumors. Do you believe in them? 2, if so, do you think he accepts the offer? 3, if rumors are Napoli or Milan might snatch Allegri before Inter have the chance to, if so, who should be your pick as Inter coach? 4, why does this off-field nonsense curva protest as well always pop up before any important Inter game? Thank you guys for saying to sempre. Well, I believe in them in the sense that I don't think Inzaghi. I think Inzaghi's actually. I mean, as I said on Monday, I think he has ambitions, and if he goes to Saudi, then to me, at this point in his career, that tells me he has no ambitions. With all due respect to the Saudi league, like I don't understand it. But we'll have to wait and see. I think a lot of this is also leverage from his agent because he wants a proper 2-year contract so that he starts next season with 3 years on it, and guarantees in terms of investment.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and not just investment, but the right investment that he wants, which I think Marotta and him are on the same page as. Rejuvenate, yes, but you need experience, not just youngsters. As for Napoli and Milan snatching up Allegri before Inter have a chance to, who would my pick as Inter coach be? It would definitely be Allegri. I mean, I just don't. I can't envision a situation where Allegri goes to Napoli or Milan without having spoken to Marotta first. I just don't envisage that. And if it does, it's one of the greatest blunders of Marotta's career. But who would I go? I like Conceicao. I think he's a good coach. I'm not sure I would go with him now. I don't know.
Mancini?
No, you can't go after third time Roberto Mancini. Absolutely not. That is one I'm just saying no. He's been there twice. Like, there needs to be, no, you can't have Roberto Mancini a third time. I'd rather give Mourinho a second chance than Mancini at this point.
Francesco Guidalin.
Yeah, exactly. I'd rather give Mourinho a chance than
Ranieri. Ranieri was third time at Roma, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah, I mean, enough's enough. And as for the off-field nonsense Curva protest, they're losing their power, the Curva, and that's where it is. Simple as that. Mark Thoreau says, Hi guys, great pods as always, and I'm particularly disappointed by Inter's end of the season. Indeed, 2 things can be true at once, and Inter getting screwed on penalties and being utterly responsible for losing this because of their inability to defend a lead is also true. Questions for me. Suddenly there's been a ton of rumored swirling about Inzaghi not renewing. Why do you think that is, and to what extent do you feel this is someone brought up by his entourage to bring pressure on the ownership to deliver finally a decent transfer window before committing? The further question is obviously who would you replace him with? I wonder, given Inzaghi's playing style and all, whether Italiano is not a much better choice than Allegri. Not only lower wages, but playing style-wise, it could be a better match also for the squad. To what extent do you feel Italiano could be potentially a good choice? I feel somehow he's kind of at the level Inzaghi was just before he joined Inter somehow. I feel Inter's profile has dramatically risen in the last few years, and I feel if Inzaghi leaves, the appointment could be a watershed moment. Thanks for a fantastic season of pods, and always a pleasure to hear debriefs, heated, dejected, passionate, or whatever flavor of the week. Fingers crossed for May 31st. I think we asked the most of that, except for the Italiano thing, and that is that Simone Inzaghi, when he came to Inter, had won trophies, but he'd also delivered good league results. Italiano has not done that. He's won a trophy, but 9th is not good enough. Same thing with Fiorentina. I want to wait. I don't think Italiano's 4-3-3 at Inter is the way to go. Absolutely not. I think he's had a fantastic season. I think his career trajectory has taken a dramatic shift upwards. But Inter, no, not yet. Absolutely not. I think we just have to wait and see. Right now, Inter just have to focus on the Champions League. And if given of the makeup of the squad, I'd go with Allegri right now because of how you explained on Monday, pretty much.
Yeah, nothing to add. Let's wait and see what happens in the Champions League final, and then we can cross this bridge again.
Okay. And final question. Ashley Prowls says, Ciao ragazzi. Prowls said, Ciao ragazzi. I'm relatively new to Italian football, but like most 90s kids, I grew up seeing the iconic kits and legendary teams, Milan, Juve, Inter, Roma, the era of Baggio, Battistuta, Del Piero, Maldini. It was always there in the background, but it wasn't until October 2024 when my wife and I celebrated our 10th anniversary in Milan that it truly clicked. Went to Milan versus Udinese at the San Siro. Not the most exciting game, but I completely fell in love. The Curva Sud, the atmosphere, the sheer magic of that stadium. I've been hooked ever since. I went back for the Bologna game recently, and my love for Italy, Milan, San Siro, and the Italian people only grew. I'm trying to learn Italian now, heavy emphasis on trying. And right now, as I'm watching Milan try to break Monza down, I'm realizing that they're playing in the 7th kit this season. Home, away, third, off-white collab 1, watermelon vibes, off-white collab 2, black and green, 125th anniversary kit, and now the 25th, 25, 26 kit. Is this normal or just more RedBird madness? Feels a bit shameless, if I'm honest. Grazie mille. What?
Yeah, carry on. Yeah, finish off. Go on.
Grazie mille, and seriously, thank you for the pod. As I mentioned on Twitter, it's really helped me this season when my love for football has taken a bit of a battering. Well, thank you so much for those kind words.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to just say what I said on the Monday show. This is the Americanization of football. It's more. Yeah.
But I mean, I got to say though, it depends on what the quality of it is. I mean, one thing that Napoli have done, I like their Christmas ones. I think their Valentine's ones were funny with the kisses and all. It's a bit hysterical, but they were a bit funny. The Maradona.
This is what I mean about identity. We're losing our identity. You know, Milan are going to be losing their identity if they're playing with 38 different kits a season. Then where is the identity of AC Milan? Where does it stop? You know,
but it's not just Milan. Everyone does it.
What comes next? You know. You know what we're going to have, you know, a kit playing one kit for the first half, playing one kit for the second half. You know, then it's going to be what play with a different kit every 10 minutes. I mean, where does it stop? This is the way the Americans do things. It's more. Squeeze as much out of it, and then you never stop. and that's what they do. So that there has to be a point where you say enough. You know, where does this end? And that's my issue. That's my issue with the Americanization of soccer.
Yeah, I don't think it's got to do with RedBird. I think everyone has done it. Inter done it. Juve have done it. Roma. I mean, lots of clubs have done it even before American ownership.
Yeah, they have. But come on, I remember when it was like to even playing a third kit once a season was rare. Now it's like we're getting to 7 kits a season. I mean,
yeah, I've read something that pissed me off, and that's Inter going to play in their yellow kits away against PSG in the Champions League final.
There you go. I mean, what is that about?
Yeah, because apparently UEFA, something about the black and blue strips being too similar to PSG's home kit.
And the away kit?
Yeah.
What's wrong with the away kit?
Well, Inter don't want to use that.
Why not?
I don't know. No idea. Just seen some reports about that.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
I'll see. Right. Those are all the questions we've been sent in over this fortnight. Please do remember to send in your questions. The season's pretty much over now. We've got the Champions League left. But we'll still be doing the Q&A pods for patrons. So please do send in your questions via Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, email, but preferably via DM on Patreon. So make sure to send them in. We'll be, writing in the chat, which as well when the deadline is. But usually, as a rule of thumb, Sunday evening at 1100 hours, 2300 hours, as Carlo likes to call it. is the break off period. But yeah, make sure to send in your questions, and until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Ciao, ciao.